Hey, everybody, this is Movies We're Talking About. It is. I don't know why you're laughing. The show where we
Sounded like
talk.
you forgot what it was called for a second.
I
This
kind of
is
did.
a podcast named
It
Movies
is.
We're Talking About.
It is because I spent a lot of time going, hi, this is John Carlos, and I'm going to review this toy. Hi, this is John Carlos, blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
So
I see.
my impulse was to go, and then I'm like, movies we were talking about. I said it a bunch of times. John Carlos, and I'm joined by Eddie. Today we are talking about the Blair Witch Project. This is a fun one to visit because every once in a while, well, a lot of times we've talked either about very recent releases, like Malignant at its time, or you know, a lot of 70s and 80s movies, things that we kind of grew up with as a kid. But this was a legitimate phenomenon that we lived through. And kind of, so like when I see this movie, it's not just revisiting a movie. I'm revisiting.
Yes.
Yeah, summer of 99, I was 18 years old, you know, and just everything that was happening with people who think the movie's real and blah, 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 blah. And the birth of viral marketing and all that shit. It's a fucking time machine, this movie.
Yeah, it totally is.
And it's a movie.
Yeah, for those of you who weren't around in the late 90s or early 2000s, I guess, to kind of like pick up, you know, to be cognizant enough of like what was going on in the atmosphere around that time. It was strange. It doesn't get talked about a lot. A lot of people talk about like the 90s and talk about like Scream as a benchmark, like for the genre and the direction the genre took and everything. And then then a lot of people jump in the conversation to like 9/11 and what happened after that. But this one was really the first found footage movie that achieved this level of success.
Yeah.
And the first thing that I got struck by just watching it this time was everything that feels like a trope now. I don't know if people who are much younger, who were like born in 2005 and after, are going to be able to see this movie and understand these weren't tropes yet that are happening in this movie.
It was fresh.
Yeah,
and
it was filmmaking. Fresh. It was inventive. It was like,
well,
yeah.
Well, also the way this movie was directed has never been done again. So
no.
Yeah, every other found footage movie literally is like directed by a director, and this is a whole different beast.
Right.
So it felt fresh for the first time because of that, but yeah, you're right, because this movie didn't invent the subgenre, but it exploded it in a way that, sure, you're right, Scream was a hit and all that, and we got some dimension. Was like, hey, we're gonna just do that a lot of times with the same poster over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But Blair Witch begat a huge gamut of knockoff, hugely influential early 2000s. And just when he thought it was going away, then Paranormal Activity resurged.
Yeah.
The found footage / fake faux documentary, mockumentary, if you will. But yeah, so tell me, because I don't think in our tenure of our friendship, we don't go into this a lot the way we get into Chucky or Halloween and stuff.
No.
Did you? What was your experience? Because I feel like 80% of the people thought it was real, and then 20% saw it after the hype. And yeah,
I was there opening weekend. I remember I saw the trailer. I don't know, maybe not a lot, maybe 2 or 3 times. Enough that it was like definitely like on my periphery. By the time I saw it the third time, I was like, yes, I know I'm definitely seeing that movie. I hope they don't show anything else, any other trailers, or show any, too much. Because even then, I didn't like knowing too much going in. I remember I went the night it opened and I had bought my ticket in advance. I got there super early, so I had a great seat. And I watched it and I was chilled because I did think it was real. And until the credits rolled, And I was so shaken and upset by it for a lot of reasons, I believe. But I was more than anything, I was kind of bewildered. Gesundheit.
Don't mind the cut, everybody. I just choked on my own spit. But I'm back. Eddie, continue.
So after that first screening, I was like, I don't know really what to do with this. I feel so incredibly rearranged. And I almost want to know why. I want to know, was it just the shock of seeing it the first time? Or is it like a legitimately good movie? I didn't know. So what I did was I snuck into the theater next door, which was also sold out, in quotes. But I walked in, and down all the way in the front row, it was a huge multiplex, and all the way down in the front row where there were like 2 or 3 empty seats. So I just grabbed one. Nobody ever occupied the other 2. So, they were sold out. Mm-hmm. But so I sat in the front row of a giant theater with a giant multiplex screen. And I I think what rearranged me was what a lot of people talked about when they saw this in the theater. The dizziness or the vertigo, or even just like the disorientation and the nausea that some people would get from the cinematography, the bounciness on a huge screen. People weren't used to it at the time, nor are they often now. But and then also the dreary, drab, kind of desaturated like browns and grays that were all pixelated, that filled the screen, because you're not watching it in HD. So it's just like it's just this really, really bad quality resolution up on screen. So there's that. And then also the emotional turmoil that the characters go through, because me, like I go on the ride and empathize with the kid. You
sure do.
I sure do. So imagine me absorbing that for the first time and then absorbing it again like this close, where I see like the infamous scene.
You're looking like, right up Heather's nostril.
Exactly. I am inside the nostril. I could just go.
Snot's dropping.
Right on Mystery Science Theater 3000. I could go swimming. Yeah, exactly. And I just remember, so I remember sitting through it again, like watching it like twice back to back, and then walking home because I was literally just catty cornered like a couple blocks away from this theater after midnight, and I was scared. And I was still rearranged, even more so because, now instead of just like 90 minutes of turmoil, I'd been through over 3 hours of it. And I remember hearing in both screenings people exclaiming very angrily their dissatisfaction with the movie.
Yes.
There was a lot of, that sucked, like whatever. And people just disgruntled. And, because they were the mainstream audiences who I don't remember if it was Friday night, but whatever night it was, they wanted to, get their fix and see the horror movie and get their thrills. And it's supposed to be like a roller coaster or a fun house or something like that. And it was different. It was angst, and it was, fighting, and it was a lot of imagination. And I carried all of that home with me. And I think the final verdict by the time I reached my house was, well, I'm scared. So that's good. And also, I think there's more to this than just that sucked, because I don't think it sucks. I really don't.
I don't.
I like it a lot.
And it's funny that all these years later, God, I saw because there's a whole generation of people who forget when like movies are a moment, and then like a month after like the hype, people go and they're like The Matrix and Blair Witch are 2 movies that people were like, let's fucking all that. Yeah. Everyone's talking about it, whatever. But there's also a generation of people who were born after it came out, and they know its legacy, and they're like, it's fucking nothing. It's stupid. What Everybody, I'm on Letterboxd, and every once in a while, like, God, there's something. I was seeing like a somewhat recent tweet about something Blair Witch related, and people were just like, why does this need to be like? People are so dismissive of it. I'm not gonna combat that or anything, but I often think about maybe people who only have like I say again because I've mentioned this before, like a very specific or more narrow way of viewing a movie. And they don't allow themselves for different flavors and to go on those journeys or accept those tones and go on those rides. And
because there were rules.
For some people though, they don't see the horror of what happens to you when you're lost in the woods for like 5 days and you can't eat, let alone the fact that there's kids banging on your tent in the middle of the night and you're hungry and you can't find your fucking car in this. That, it's, I won't be judgy or anything, but for some people it's, like I like my slashers or I like my this. And things can't be too heady or too grounded. too dreamlike. But yeah, I'm just saying that negativity still exists in the communities of horror. But it's okay, because there's horror movies that I think ain't shit either. So
yeah, I know. I was actually a little disappointed. I don't usually let other people's opinions influence, my own opinions when I go into something, especially if it's something that I already know and I already kind of feel like I like. But I don't know, it was kind of disheartening to see there were 3 reviews. I streamed this off Redbox because I don't own it still. I owned it like back in the day when I had a DVD collection, primarily, and I haven't upgraded to Blu-ray. And maybe it'll change after this, but I streamed it off Redbox, and there were 3 reviews. 2 of them were pretty recent. They were just like, this is the most boring movie I've ever had to sit through. Don't waste your time, kind of thing. And the other one was even more snarky and snide. Like, not even snarky. Snark is fun, but it was cynical and just mean-spirited, and just kind of like this is why, again, the rules. Like, this is why movies need a budget and need, to be made by filmmakers and everything like that. And I'm just like, wow. Like,
this is why a script, needs a jump scare every 10 minutes or 10 pages.
Oh God.
Like
that's studio talk. That is studio made up bullshit. Like, it really pisses me off. That's what pisses me off, because you're fans. You should know better.
I like James Wan movies, but I feel like there's a generation of people who like horror movies are The Conjuring, and like anything that doesn't deliver like that is just really stupid, boring. Anyway, I don't want to get into like fighting imaginary people. But as a fan of this movie, I also have heard going on 23 years of dissenting opinions. So
yeah, that's true.
But I'm glad you brought up that you streamed it off Redbox.
Yeah.
Because I own the DVD. But I figured, because I looked up, it's on every streaming service, by the way. Maybe not Netflix, but it's on everything. So I'm like, well, it's probably going to look better streaming in, like 1080p than it will on my DVD. So I throw it on HBO Max, and it's fucking widescreen. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
This movie was not widescreen. This movie was 1.33 to 1. It's projected in theaters, black bars on the side. So I go to Paramount Plus, it's widescreen. I go to Peacock, it's widescreen. I go to Hulu, it's widescreen. It's widescreen everywhere.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they did for Blu-ray, but I know at some point they went in and made it 125 for widescreen TVs, which I know I forget when it happened, but it was like the 4th version of Evil Dead on DVD. Sam Raimi approved.
Yes. But
when you got Evil Dead, you had your choice of the original theatrical square.
Yeah.
Or the cropped movie thing. The fact that right now, if you're on streaming, you don't have the option of seeing Blair Witch the way it was framed is fucking horseshit.
I know. I agree. And I didn't think about it a whole lot while I was watching it. Like, it occurred to me, and then there's something about, again, the immersive time travel nature of it. The fact that I'm sitting there watching it, kind of going like, these are tropes now. And when I saw them, it was just kind of like, oh my gosh, these kids, like, they just felt like kids in a horror movie, like, or even worse, like, because I thought it was real the first time I saw it. I thought like, oh my God, these poor kids who just want to go make a documentary about something kind of spooky and kind of interesting, and like maybe they'll get some funding to like reshoot it and make it like more high, but this is like a passion project, really, especially for Heather. And I just remember this sense of impending doom. And that was another thing that really played into it for me, was the anticipation of what's going to come. Like, we didn't know. Des, my cat's meowing. Say, hey. Anyway.
The Blair Witch didn't appreciate me, so it choked me out.
And now it's got my cat.
And now Allie Kedward is fucking with your cat.
Yeah, right. It's just, oh God. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, okay. So I'm watching it for the first time, thinking like these are all, like kids going out into they're making their short movie and everything. And no, I got completely derailed. I don't remember what I was saying now.
Yeah, I mean, I can't I mean, you thought it was real, and
I thought it was real.
but that was the preface to a thought that you lost. And
yeah,
I don't know what it was going to be because I'm not in there.
I know. Fuck. Oh, give me a second. This is gonna be like just cut up.
It might come back to you like 30 minutes from now.
Yeah, Des, lay down.
Or when we're done.
See, this is what she does. She distracts. Okay, she's laying down. Good.
Okay. You thought there was rapport, people, and Heather was trying to finish her movie, and I
thought about the time travel of like sitting there and thinking like they're not tropes. This is like real people, and this is what's happening to them. And okay, I'll just go into that then. I mean, there were even like little kind of like I found charm. I had completely forgotten about Heather's narration voice that she puts on.
Oh my fucking God.
When she almost turns New Englander, like just sits there and talks about Coffin Rock.
Well, and the reason why it works so well is that it's immediately prefaced by, I want this to be like real. I don't want this to be like cheesy.
Yeah.
I want this to, and then, oh my God.
I want it to be legit. So in order for that to happen, I have to speak with an affectation that I was never raised with.
And I genuinely love, though, that Heather's the kind of person that doesn't think that's cheesy.
Yeah.
Like in her mind. And well, I was going to ask this later, but have you seen The Curse of the Blair Witch? The 1 hour TV special that was used to promote.
Oh, yeah. A long time ago. Yeah.
In it, they established that not only is she a film student, but that she used to do theater. And I'm like, well, there it is.
Everything is explained. She's Jennifer Connelly in Labyrinth. It's who she is. Just a few years older.
Yeah. She just has to go, you have no power over me.
Yes. And my kingdom is as great. And I think that was another thing that sold me, though. Like, if they were actors who they hired to be kind of like the Burkittsville locals, they had some girl. I mean, obviously, like the toddler that the woman's holding, that's like covering her mouth when she's talking about the scary stuff and everything. Like, that's not acting. Like, that little girl is probably like legitimately
doesn't like spooky talk.
Yeah, she doesn't like the spooky talk. So but there was something about absorbing all of that felt so authentic to me. That's my, always my word, my way in. But just the way it was. I don't know. It was almost like it was setting me up for like that campfire story. Like, I want to sit around and I want to kind of like absorb as much of the horror as I can, because it all does feel like it's building toward this impending like reveal. Even though, that was another thing. I remember a lot of people complaining at the time that they didn't get to it's a Blair Witch Project and we never get to see the Blair Witch. And I'm like, if you're listening, you've got her. If you're I probably saw her more vividly this particular sitting too than I ever have in my mind's eye. Just off of like the descriptions, and then just the shrieking of Heather as she's running away from the tent going, what the fuck is that?
And everything you're dealing with is like the machinations of her. So like, but I always bumped into that. I always thought that was such a stupid argument. Like, I mean, this is a different kind of, but like I saw Brazil and the movie doesn't fucking take place in Brazil. And I go, ooh, what the fuck? Licorice Pizza. They don't go to Licorice Pizza.
Right. War for the Planet of the Apes. There's no fucking war in that movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother
me. Not on the ground with weapons, but
Right.
So stupid.
Yeah. It's
literally the name of her documentary project. No.
So I mean, in that vein, it could be about what it means to. I mean, I remember hearing from an acting teacher of mine that like if a movie is named after the name of a person, it's what it is to be that person or to know that person. You call it the Blair Witch Project, it could just be about what it is to pursue that project, what it is, or what price do you have to pay for that project to finally be something. Or is the end product going to be what you originally intended? No, it's going to be this death film, and that was also, I don't know why I was so naive. I think we all were, or not all of us, but 50% of us were, because I know you weren't. But I totally was. I absolutely thought this was like footage they recovered and somehow got like the green light from the kids' families or something because people must know about the Blair Witch kind of thing. I just totally ate it up. I don't know what was wrong with me.
I mean, and that was and what's interesting about that, I just realized right now, is that like the timing of it, because had they conceived this movie even 5 or 10 years later, it wouldn't have worked.
No.
We were still in an early enough time where media, like we weren't all connected to each other.
Yeah.
And to information in a way where like, if you release this in theaters now, people are like, well, the family would never release this. And then I would look all this information up. You still had to get your news from the fucking TV. And it was like a new thing to go online and go to a website to get information. If you want to be up to date with movies, you had to read like Entertainment Weekly, and like journalism kept you informed. So you could put something like this in theaters. You could put flyers at Sundance and people would be like, what do you mean they're missing children? Like, what do you mean? Oh, what is this? And so yeah, it was definitely a product of its time, and also the time, like probably that was like maybe even the last year or two they could have even attempted to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I wish I could have gone on your journey. Like I liked my journey.
What was it like for you? What was it like for you?
But everyone had. I wish I could have that feeling of like, what the fuck. But I knew in advance. Because I remember reading. I want to say like a month or two before it came out. It was either in Backstage West or Dramalog before they merged.
Okay.
So LA, but there was like an interview with. It was all basically. It was an article about this upcoming movie, and there was a big interview with Eduardo Sanchez and Myrick. Anyway, the two directors.
Sure.
And the article was all about how they made this movie. And I remember reading it, just being fascinated about the process of, because we've seen mockumentary movies like Waiting for Guffman and just productions like Curb Your Enthusiasm, where like, here's what needs to happen in the scene. And then you guys get there. Yeah. But this is a case of like, all right, here's a map of where you need to get to. And over the course of the day, you know, maybe this needs to happen, or, you know, especially at night, like I'm reading this whole article about like, yeah, we put speakers out beyond where they were camping so that we could make noise in the middle of the night. And we told them to like film and react as if it's real. And the things that they did to them, like when they're going grocery shopping in the beginning, like they were allotted money and that's really them buying food. Yeah. But just the things that they steered them, it was kind of referred to as like method directing. And I was fascinated that this was a possible production that like somebody did. Yeah. So I went into the movie already knowing it was fake, but also so excited to be like, oh my God, they gave cameras to real actors. Yeah. And then they did stuff to them. And sometimes they had information for the day. Like Josh would know, like at the end of, this needs to happen, this fight or something needs to happen. Just shit like that. Just fascinating way to do it. I'm 18 years old. I'm so interested in like, film and blah, blah, blah. And to this day, can you think of any other director that's done this level of improv guided faux documentary that, no, I don't think anyone's ever attempted it. And so, yeah, I was already film snob going in like, let's see what these guys did. Oh, it's really working. But yeah, but at the same time though, Eddie, I was still scared. Wow. Just because it wasn't real to me. Yeah. Because every other horror movie I see isn't real. So it still worked. Right. It still totally worked. In fact, one of the things that worked for me or helped me was I did see Curse of the Blair Witch before I saw the movie. Oh, okay. Because this came out at the end of July, I think. And then I know that aired like maybe 2 weeks before in the middle of July. Right. And I remember, I distinctly remember they were talking about Ellie Kedward, who was in the creek in the 1800s, and how it was shallow water, like knee height, like a kid could barely like wade in it. Mm-hmm. But then the hand of a witch came out and pulled her down and drowned her. And then they're like, where'd she go? How could anyone drown in this? Where's the body? Yada, yada, yada. Right. And I realized I just misspoke. It was treacle. it was Eileen Treacle who got pulled into the water. Ellie Kedward's the Blair Witch. So Eileen Treacle was a little girl who got pulled in the water. Couldn't find her. Yada yada. So now I'm watching the movie, and I have that in my head. So there are scenes in the movie that aren't particularly scary, but for me they were, like when they're crossing the log with the equipment, and I'm looking at that shallow little creek of water. I'm just like, is a fucking hand gonna come out and grab Josh's leg?
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, just, and it's not meant to be a scene of tension, but it is for me, because I'm like, there's gonna be a fucking hand that comes out of the water. Oh, thank God it didn't.
Oh, nice.
And even then, I'm wondering, like, do you dig deeper into the thing, and then how do you get it to? I don't know, but thank God. So yeah, I had my own baggage, which also like I'll just, like, when this came out, like I went in, like it was my shit. I think I saw it 3 or 4 times in theaters.
Oh, nice.
When the Curse of the Blair Witch came out on VHS, I think, did I buy it or I taped it off TV? Either way, it was a bonus feature on the DVD, so that didn't matter. But like I watched that over and over again. Yeah. All the lore, I got so into it. Like there were video games. I think I can't remember if they came out in time for the second movie or not, but there was like 3 different video games. I only had one of them, but they were set in 3 distinct time periods. Yeah. So like, it's funny because in my brain, between this and Blair Witch 2 and the Curse of the Blair Witch, and there was 2 other documentaries that they made when the second movie came out. There's like the 7 documentary, and then there was another one, like the true story of Jeff Patterson. That one's, but anyway, all this peripheral stuff and all this lore between Rustin Parr and Eileen Treacle and all that shit. It's all in my head. And I had seen Blair Witch a lot when it came out, but I haven't watched the movie in fucking like over 10 years. Maybe
me neither.
15 years.
It's been a long time.
For something that I used to be obsessed with, it's been a long time. So in my head, all those facts of like the original banishment of Ellie and all that, it's all in there. And when you watch the movie, all they have going in advance is Rustin Parr, and Treacle getting pulled into the water, and
Mary Brown's encounter with her,
right? And then Coffin Rock,
of course.
And they don't even really go into like why the men are out there, but like a girl was abducted, and then they go out looking for her. There's so much that isn't in the movie that I'm like, oh yeah. They don't even mention Ellie Kedward's name. No, like they just refer to it as the Blair Witch. It's not a complaint, but it's just funny how much. Again, that's how influential the Curse of the Blair Witch is on the lore. Right. I wish I'd seen that again. It's on Tubi. Oh, cool. Okay. Sweet. I would never tell anyone you have to watch them together, but I will tell anyone, but it's really good to watch them together. Right. Right. Because Blair Witch, this viewing just on its own, without all that extra like data, when I'm just focusing on the story, the movie succeeds completely. But I mean, I think, and I'll take a minute to like really give props to the fact that not only was the Blair Witch Project probably one of the best versions of a found footage movie, and because they're doing the tropes so well, and bringing, in my opinion, a lot of truth to it all, but as far as promotional, as far as like a fake tie-in where where you're now also going to production on this 45-minute essentially commercial to go see the Blair Witch. And the fact that it's so entertaining that it doesn't even feel like a 45-minute promo piece. It's directed by the same 2 guys. Right. Some of the stuff that's in it was originally, because originally the Blair Witch Project was going to be a kind of like what the TV special was. And the kids being in the woods was going to be like the catalyst for this, and there's going to be a big factor in it. But the way I heard it back in the day was that they essentially like were seeing what the kids were making, or once they got all the footage back, and they're like, this is the fucking movie. We don't need the interviews and the news footage and all that other stuff. I think we can just make it this. But when it was time to promote it, they ended up getting to make all that other stuff.
Uh-huh.
And just like the Blair Witch Project, the people that they get to be in it are so believable. Like I think they did that thing where like they got like a real film teacher and like a real historian, and then they gave them like the facts. So when they're speaking on things, they're still using the cadence of their profession. You know,
and maybe even merging like actual events with like these fictitious events to just kind of like make it all seem incredibly seamless. Like, because I never doubt the stories that anybody's telling at all, even in just the theatrical movie. Like, I mean,
and there's a mix. Some like what I think the young man in the backwards hat who's explaining what Rustin Parr did, he's an actor, but like the old lady, not the old lady, but the lady holding the kid.
Yeah.
So like, I think she's a real Burkittsville.
Wow.
There's a few people who are just like locals that they asked to.
That did really well. Like, dear God.
Very fortunate. Anyway, I don't want to spend too much time talking about the Curse of Blair Witch, but I think the fact that you could sell it on VHS, people would buy it and be entertained by it. Like, it really does enhance experience. It gives you just a little bit more backstory. It makes you feel a little bit bad when you actually see like Josh's girlfriend. Or Mike's brother. Like, it just gives you family context. And,
painful.
Yeah. Anyway, if you've never seen the Blair Witch, like, go on Tubi, go watch Curse of Blair Witch. It really enhances.
It's been like 20 years since I saw that. Like, I think that my sister even had like a VHS like 2 set like of the theatrical release and then the Curse of the Blair Witch, and they were like bound together or whatever. And and I think I remember watching it once or twice. I barely remember anything about that. And Blair Witch, it's been over at least 15 years, maybe a little more. I don't know, since I last saw it.
It also nowadays when you do like fake TV programming, like, it feels like we're making a fake show, but everything about the camera placement, the title cards, the actors, it all feels like a real special. It's so good. It's so fucking good.
And then the satires.
But then you get to the website, which also had like the photos of them, all that shit. I don't think kids today really understand how duped so many people were. Because it wasn't like, I remember, like the Dark Knight had really good viral marketing in 2008, but it wasn't pretending to be real. This fooled people into thinking they had to go see a real thing, and people were upset because it was exploitative. And,
it was it was so immersive.
And like, also the way information travels was still slower, because like, even to this day, like when you see like a meme or some sort of semi-political thing, you can go on Snopes. And then when it's been a month and someone's still sharing this thing, and then you can go, guys, this is fake. And then you drop a Snopes link or something.
Right.
You can be judgy about that. And I am. And I'm like, but I'm just fascinated in this modern age of information, people can still be dumb about how they get their facts and what's real or not.
Yeah.
Back in 1999, the fucking cast, I think, was like on the Tonight Show.
Yeah, I remember Heather was certainly on. Yeah.
And people were still like, well, like 2 months later, they're like, oh, it's fucked up that it's real. And I'm like, but Heather Donahue's in a Doers ad. Like, here's Entertainment Weekly. He's alive. They're doing interviews on Rolling Stone.
Right.
It's fake. How do you, but there was still a world where you could fool people if you just weren't reading Rolling Stone and you didn't watch the Tonight Show and you didn't see the Bacardi ad or whatever.
If you were just like kind of barely into it, because some people just go to the movies to, like, they go and they see a movie and then they leave, and if they hear something about it, it sticks or it doesn't, but and then they'll bring it up in a conversation, and someone who might be more in the know can sit there and say like, no, that's actually not true. If you look at A, B, C, and D, and there's like, well, I just don't have the interest like to do anything like that. I've had that conversation many times with people where, oh God, I'm not even going to get into it. It's just going to make me upset.
I'm just happy that in my community of friends and film goers, almost everyone I know was really on board, or it worked on them. I didn't really have to I only had to engage it once or twice at the time with like a naysayer. It wasn't until like a year or 2 or 3 or 4 years later that I really started to hear it. And I'll never forget, my friend who lived in Manhattan Beach, they were building a new house next door, and they were all having a sleepover. And they decided to like go into the property next door, which was just digging into it was just dirt and then the basement that they were building.
Okay.
And they were snooping around, and then one guy got separated. And then they all stood in the corner.
Oh no.
Just so he could find them and see them in the corner. He's like, no.
Oh my God.
Here's how good the movie is. You could stand in a corner at night and scare someone.
Yeah.
Just by turning your back on.
Oh fuck no! I even now. I mean, again, I know it's not real. I know it's a movie, but if I were to walk down some stairs or into a pool that's being dug out or something like that, even if I weren't to like walk into it, if I just like walked into a backyard and I was expecting you to be there, let's say, and I'm like walking around and then I see this hole where they've dug the pool and you're just standing like in one corner with your back toward me, I'm leaving. Right? Like, sorry, John Carlos.
Yeah, that same sleepover. The next morning, like they gathered up a pile of rocks and they put him outside the bedroom he was sleeping in.
Oh my God.
And they woke up just to hearing, no, you assholes.
Oh my God.
Because a pile of rocks can actually be scary. And if you disagree with me, bummer, I'm sorry you can't go on the journey, but here's that's because it's simple setup. It's simple setup. You go, Rustin Parr took 7 kids. Mm-hmm. There's 7 piles of rocks. Yeah. We know what the rocks represent. Death.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now there's 3 piles of rocks outside your tent.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck?
Those are essentially your tombstones now. Yeah.
Right? You've been marked, you know.
Yeah. And okay, so since I'm so glad that you had and continue to have like kind of like this grip on the lore, because I remember seeing, like I said, I remember seeing Curse of the Blair Witch then and everything like that. But okay, it leads to a huge question for me because you're bringing up Rustin Parr and everything like that, and even this particular screening, I guess I misremembered it because I thought that was like a Blair Witch thing. But if it's Rustin Parr, then was he like under some kind of like thrall of the Blair Witch, and that's what motivated him to that's what the argument was being made.
So much happened. I mean, without getting too gooby into the lore, she took some kids. They claimed that she was doing witchcraft when she was like pinpricking their fingers. The town got rid of her.
Yeah.
Everything that happens after, like Treacle getting pulled in the water, seems to be a ghost to her. Mary seeing like Mary an apparition. Brown, seems to be her, but like, you know, the girl that the 5 guys go looking for, she claims a woman who floated took her and put her like in a basement. Other people think she just might have been spewing legend she heard, but like 5 men went looking for her. We don't know who might have done that to them at Coffin Rock. Right. Rustin Parr, we know was done by like a man. There are things that happen in the Blair saga that are clearly just, you could argue that Rustin Parr is a liar, but in taking her name in vain, maybe she still honored that. I still think, but I always thought that he was under a trance or her spell, but in the Curse of Blair Witch, like they established that his defense once caught was that like she told him to do it.
Okay. Even just talking, see, I have all my windows open in my house right now, and I had them open when I was watching it last night. That's when I streamed it, and I wanted it to be dark. I wanted, it to be nighttime and everything like that. I didn't want the safety of, like, and I had a similar thing happen to me that happens to me because I was scared, but it was more like, again, alert, like hyper alert. You and I haven't had like an in-depth discussion about, say, like Halloween 1978 yet. But one thing I will say about to this day when I watch that movie, because I've watched it during the day or day into night, kind of like, the trajectory of the movie and the main action of the movie anyway. And after it's over, I always, for the first movie in particular, after it's over, I always want to immediately close the windows if they're open. And if the windows are already closed, but the blinds are open, I want the blinds down. I want them shut. I don't want to see what's going on, in the around the perimeter of my house, because I imagine I'm going to see a silhouette of a person. Needn't be the shape. It could just be any silhouette of a human being.
And you don't want to be startled by that.
I don't want to see it. I don't want to know it's there. I don't want I don't want to even have it enter my mind like, oh, that window's open. And, and for a split second you look to see, is there something there? Because you're already like kind of like on a hyper vigilant frequency, and that's where I am after this movie, because I think it's also we brought up something when we talked about particularly the first Paranormal Activity, the the kind of hidden I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember this highlights magazine, when you would find like a toaster in a tree, or find like a or like a bouquet of roses in a giant mushroom, you know, like whatever, or a giant mushroom inside a bouquet of roses, whatever. Like you look for the hidden stuff in these painting, and not these painting, these drawings. And that's kind of like what Paranormal Activity was. Is like, you know, there's a screen and you're just like, okay, something's moving somewhere. I know it is. I'm going to scan the screen because it's not going to jump out at me and freak me out. I'm going to see where something's different. The door's moving, you know, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. This movie was doing that to me again, too. I found myself kind of like looking to see, even though I'd seen the movie before, I was like looking to see, like, I don't remember exactly if they have like stuff moving or if you can kind of make things out. And because it is so kind of like pixelated, like it can look like something, but it can also look like nothing. It can just look like, you know, just a really, really poor resolution. But I found myself doing that again. So at night, I was walking around kind of looking and listening for shit. And it just made me more alert, you know, more aware of sounds and sights. And that creeps me out. I just wanted to share that.
No, I appreciate that. I didn't have that this time, but Lord knows I've had it in the past.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad you asked about Rusted Park, because one of the things that I've always appreciated about this movie is that the Blair Witch doesn't seem to only have one way of operating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She can influence a guy into kidnapping kids. She can bewitch him.
Yeah.
But she can also pull a kid down into magically shallower water than's actually there.
And she can also like then float to Mary Brown.
Right.
And be covered in like horse hair.
She can be floaty.
And show off like her body that's all covered. Oh God.
Yeah. So when I like sometimes when the threat is obtuse, because when it's narrow, I feel like I can zero in on the rule of it and then protect myself. But when it's multiple avenues, I can't defend myself against it, you know?
Yeah. There was another thing I wanted to ask you, because I don't know if you know what it is supposed to be or if it's just completely subjective and you have your own opinion. Because I have my own theory now.
The ending?
Not even the ending.
Okay.
Well, no, we can get to the ending, but no, the unwrapping of the sticks when Josh disappears and the twigs are all wrapped up with it. It's obviously like, you know, the lining of his shirt, and Heather throws it away to get away, and then finally she does, like in a private moment, go over and unwrap it to see what it is. And I've had this back in the day, like 20 years ago, this was a regular conversation I'd have with anyone who had seen the Blair Witch. I'd ask them, what do you think that fucking was? Because you can't really, you could guess, you know? Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the graininess of it, because to me, it works in the movie's favor.
It does.
Especially in a moment like that.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, I was always convinced that the main bit in the middle was a piece of tongue. And I've always thought it was his tongue, and that always bothered me. Not in the moment, but later when you hear Josh, because in my mind, my headcanon is Josh is already kind of possessed / bewitched, and he's being made to yell to lure them. But I always imagine Josh, not even in his own mind, like his eyes are blank, but his voice is screaming, and there's just like blood and like a cut tongue, and he's just like being controlled to scream.
Oh my God.
And I always imagine that lack of tongue, just like he's able to, like the witch can make him enunciate with part of his tongue missing. Anyway, that's what I thought. Until this viewing, and I don't know, it's just because the TV also upscales, but whatever. But I really looked at the middle and I'm like, oh, that's a molar. It's just covered in blood. But if you look at the shape of it, it's a molar.
Okay.
And then when she kind of digs around, then there's more molars in the back.
Right.
There's definitely molars in the back, but that main center one is so red. I still think now maybe it's not a tongue. Maybe it's all just teeth and blood. Some people claim there's teeth and blood and hair. I don't see hair. I
didn't see any hair.
I just see a mess. But either way, I still imagine like I've never ever believed in this movie that the witch is physically there, you know? I've always thought she's a spirit, she's a force, and that nothing, like, she never pulled Josh's teeth out. Josh pulled his own fucking teeth out.
Oh God.
Yeah. No, that's the way it works for at least in my head canon.
Okay. Interesting.
The only time I think she might be real is all the stick men in the woods.
Yeah, that's a huge one for me.
For the longest time, I always presumed, again, it's funny how things change. There's little things in this movie that I took into account that I never took into account before. I always thought the stick figures were always there, and they stumbled upon them. I don't know why I was before. I'm admitting my stupidity now. But when you hear all those things snapping in the middle of the night, I now realize, like, oh no, that's her making stick figures. And that's what I'm like, maybe she did take on an actual form.
Yeah. See, yeah.
So what do you think is in the bundle?
Okay, so the bundle, first off, I always thought it was a tongue. And the thing is, because I was really looking hard this time, like this is probably like the highest resolution because I have upscaling on my TV too. So I'm sitting there watching the streaming and like, trying to like make it out thinking, okay, I'm really going to get a good look at it this time. No, it's still pixelated as fuck. It looks like, like a red splotch surrounded by, I couldn't even make out molars, but I'm just like, okay, maybe, but I remember people mentioning that in the past. So I thought, okay, but I think, and I'm thinking as I'm watching it, like I literally thought like, okay, I think it's the tongue still. And what carries it over for me, in again, headcanon, that makes it even more terrifying is I don't believe that Josh is still alive after that. I think he's been already kind of like cattle or, like some kind of like livestock, just kind of like, caught, trapped, dismembered, maybe while still alive, but maybe killed first. I don't know, but whatever she thinks is going to be best for her, and whatever kind of magic she's going to conjure or anything like that, and whatever she wants to use for herself for the future, whatever she wants to hold on to, whatever she wants to make jewelry out of, and then whatever she wants to use to just kind of like bait them. And I felt like because she cut out his tongue, I felt like because we don't hear anything from him until that night after discover the alleged tongue. That's when you start to hear his voice and the moaning, but also the forming of sentences like "follow my voice," "come on guys, follow my voice," particularly the last night, and that it almost made me think like, okay, I mean, I know the tongue doesn't create noise, but because it's something we use to,
you need to make your T's and hit your S's.
to like articulate our speech and everything like that. I feel like there must have been something about like the removal of the tongue in order to somehow kind of like capture the essence of the voice, at least the intonations of it, kind of like a 3D printout of a raptor vocal chamber, like maybe she like needed to get to his throat, and in order to do that she had to pull his tongue out and get kind of like whatever she needed from like the insides of all of here in order to kind of like call them as him and because at first it sounds like he's crying out in pain, and that makes me think she's baiting them. She's trying to get them to think he's in pain so they'll come and they'll run for him. And then okay, that didn't work, so the next night her idea is to just articulate full-on sentences to him, just saying like, guys, come on, follow my voice, I'm downstairs, come on, like whatever, just to get them to come. If they think he's actually safe, now they'll go after him and everything. I'd be like, where the fuck were you, or whatever, because also they're completely manic at that point.
So I understand you think she's corporeal, like she literally was like fucking pulling his tongue out.
Yeah,
and she's using her mouth.
I think she's
to like
crafty.
summon them.
I think she's crafty.
But you think she's real?
Like, yeah, I totally think she's real. I think she's corporeal. I think she's crafty as fuck. I think she's the one who definitely laid the rocks there, because this is the thing. There's something about her ability to capture other people's voices that also for me gets kind of like not even reiterated because it precedes all of this, but it's when we hear the laughter of the children at night, and they mention the screaming of the baby, and this is the thing that even freaked me out even more, because it's so kind of like amorphous and nebulous, like these noises, they seem to be surrounding them, they seem to be coming from far and nearer and then farther and whatever. And So I'm hearing children laughing. Certainly, they didn't mention anything about children laughing. They said, "Did you hear the baby screaming after all that?" I didn't hear a baby scream, but what I did hear was something that sounded very weird. And maybe this is what they were talking about. It didn't sound like a baby though, or not just a baby. It almost sounded like maybe a baby animal, like a baby goat or something like that. It started making a weird kind of growl, like cry sound, and it sounded otherworldly. It really talking about all this, I'm getting myself like worked up and scared because it's back to that basic thing of like creepy noises at night. You don't know what they are. You're in a tent, essentially with these other people who are panicking, and you know how susceptible I am to other people's energy, like especially when they're scared and I'm scared. It's just kind of like, oh my God, it's going to get even worse. So yeah, I think she's definitely corporeal. I think because I really, really buy into Mary Brown's story. Yes, Mary Brown is probably very, very damaged and very she's also on another frequency. She probably was before she met the Blair Witch.
Such an effective performance though. She creeps me out.
Yes.
And I don't mean in a shallow way of like, oh, she's an old lady. Nothing about it's her posture and it's the way she it almost like it was hair. Yeah. And I'm like, oh God, the way oh my God, it just bothered. It's so effective.
I've sat next to her on the bus. Like I know that woman. Yeah. I've that woman always wants to sit next to me too. I don't know why. But yeah, and that's the thing is because she also inspires like a sympathy in me, because I don't think it's easy being Mary Brown,
No.
Regardless of like whatever it is that got her where she is as of the filming of the movie. But and it makes me sad that because I don't know, because again, like there's so much mystery around her and her story. We know that she also claimed to be a lot of other things, like a ballerina and a scientist and a this and a that, and she invented that and this and whatever. And so she doesn't seem if she's tethered to the earth, her feet aren't on the ground either. Right. Like she's very much like the Blair Witch in that vein. But but because I don't know her story, I don't know. Oh, nobody ever says, oh, Mary Brown was fine before she said that the Blair Witch came to her. And so we don't know who she was. So we don't know what exactly is lost and what exactly is a result of like that encounter. And if it even is. And the fact that like also the Blair Witch didn't do anything to her, that really,
Eddie, where my brain goes with that, it's not good.
No,
it's that I always like to think, and again, there's no evidence in the movie, but the fact that her story didn't end badly is because like she's kind of tethered to the witch herself,
right? Or that she's
like they caught her on a good day, but there are other days that you aren't there for, where she is like a puppet. Like in my head, Josh is a puppet.
Okay.
And it's left her a little loopy and
like rearranged. Like, and that, again, but then even the people who seem to only kind of like know of the Blair Witch legend, but know it really, really well, like the older guy when they're fishing and he's back to back with the other guy. And he's just I think the line he says something like, you kids never learn or something like that.
Kids never learn.
Yeah. And everything. And he so begrudgingly seems to not want to be a part of the documentary, but also kind of desperately wants to be the main subject of the day, because he doesn't hesitate. The more Heather starts to pursue him, I like the fact, again, I know that guy, the guy who knows the real story, and he, if you kids would just stop going on with your film and everything and listen to somebody who actually knows something, I could tell you something, but I'm not. Unless you ask me, and
I love how triggered he gets by the guy who doesn't believe.
Yes,
they again, my head is full of the most inane shit from this franchise, but those two, he's a father-in-law to the younger guy.
Okay.
And I can feel the energy between them.
Totally.
As some sort of familial, but maybe not blood, but like it's present.
Yeah.
He kind of does wish he would shut the fuck up sometimes.
Like they're connected, but not by choice.
Right, exactly. Like they're out there fishing because like my daughter wanted us to get closer, some bullshit like that,
Yeah. There's and even just, I don't remember his name, but the older man who's I think the first one to mention Mary Brown. And is he yeah, the older man who like really gives them a lot of like their background stuff with like this. Oh my God, yeah, it's such a great way in, because I remember even just like watching them, and again it feels tropey now, but just like watching them in the hotel room, just kind of like trying out the equipment and checking in with each other and assessing, like letting you know who I am and who this person is and everything. And I was just kind of like, God, I remember being in the theater and seeing that, particularly the first time when I thought it was real, and just being kind of like, oh my God, these poor kids here, they're so idealistic, and they're just thinking about like, this is just going to be a few days out in the woods, and now you know, I mean, I was in it. I was so incredibly in it. I think the first thing that it didn't pull me out of it, but actually the first moment of judgment I really felt in the movie, particularly this screening, because I didn't remember how often when they're particularly, I think it's the first night in the woods and they hear the noises in the background, the crackling and everything like that. And you just get Heather like, okay, get the camera and everything, get the lights and everything. And she shines a light into the woods at night. Strange noises are happening. And she's like, hello? I'm like, no, you couldn't pay me. No, I'm going into.
I'm with Mike on this for the first. I mean, I'm not kicking a map into the fucking water, but I am with Mike on the second night. Or was it the first night? I'm gonna get, but basically
when he's like, just in the tent and he just wouldn't leave.
When I heard the noise, she's like, I wanted you. He's like, but we're making a documentary about a fucking witch, not about us sleeping. And no, she's like, yeah, but I wanted to run sound. And he's like, I don't want to. It's scary. And I'm like, yeah, it is scary. And that's the time for me to be doing this.
Yeah,
I'm with you, especially when his argument is that like, we're out here in the middle of the woods. I've seen fucking Deliverance. There's people out there. And he believes it. It's not about a witch. There's people out there and they're fucking with us.
They're not happy.
And I don't want to deal with that. And she goes, and what if it's not people though? He goes like, and I don't want to fuck with that either.
Exactly. And those were also great audience identification moments. I remember the audience laughing nervously but supportively at those ones, just like, fuck yeah, you know. And I still hear that when I like watch the movie now.
The number one audience identifier for me, and I'm always happy when I saw it in the crowd because I got to laugh every time. It's when she's talking about Gilligan and the captain. First of all, he's the skipper.
Yeah.
If you laugh, then I'm with you.
Right.
You
Totally.
fucking heathens.
Yeah. There were more than a few of those. I remember. Oh shit. Well, I remember people laughing, and again, I don't know if they were just laughing because they're just like laughing on screen, so they're supposed to laugh, or if it's just like a nervous laughter, or it's so absurd that you kind of like laugh hysterically. I don't know, but when they found out about the map being thrown, because he is laughing when he discloses that he kicks the map into the river. Oh, I had people laughing, but again, it was like, it felt nervous. It felt like, oh my God, you know, like with dread, you know, kind of like whistling as you walk past the cemetery kind of a thing. But that might've been the only moment that I really kind of like have a bit of, I mean, it's not even a criticism. I guess it is a criticism for, it's just like, it's probably the most abrupt moment in the movie for me, and the one that feels the most kind of like, and you kicked in the map because you like, maybe they gave him a 3x5 card that said like, you kicked the map into the river yesterday and you got to tell them about it today, and you got to find a way to bring it up. And it's kind of like the weakest motivation to share the information with them at that particular time, because why? And also, I mean, everything that follows afterwards I can get on board with, so it doesn't ruin the movie for me or anything like that. Like their response, their violent, raging response works for me. So
I'm sure either Heather got a card saying like, the map's gone, and you need to start. But also, I don't know if this is how they did it for that particular one, but I know they had a password. I think it was taco or something. But like, if we come into the tent, if we say taco, ignore what we're doing. It doesn't count. So I think like the night where they took Josh, they like unzip the tent and they're like, Josh, and they're like, taco, and then like, zip, Josh is gone now, and you don't know it. You know, I can't help but wondering if they're like, they come into the tent in the middle of the night, took her fucking map, And I went, taco,
Right.
And it's up to you the next day to like be like, where
the
fuck is my map?
Yeah. Those moments. Sorry, go ahead.
And maybe the card is just check your pocket, because you need to try to get an honest performance as you can.
Of course.
And again, that's the blind trust that you've got with, and that's, I don't know if I'm ready to talk about it yet, but the miracle of this movie is that they cast not only 3 very believable actors, but that they were able to guide them to make a watchable movie.
Yeah.
This really shouldn't have worked.
No.
To the degree that it works.
For me, I think even though she is largely kind of like the antagonist of the group because she's the least popular among them for most of the film, I feel like Heather is what carries me through, even though I don't agree with her priorities. I mean, she there's something, again, there's that weird streak of like the theater kid / but budding artist, budding filmmaker, like the passion behind your media and what it means to you, and even just like her affectation with her narration, like everything, she's just so full of gumption and spirit for this project, and just can't wait to see it. Like even she gives the look of like if it had been directed, I feel like the director would have whispered like, look like, well, this is a bad example, but well, look like a traveler, just like I was gonna say Christopher Columbus, but that, but look like somebody who's like, seeking out to like discover something new, like look over this landscape, this vast, like when he asked her like, so do you believe, do you think that the Blair Witch is real? It's just like, I don't know.
She's such a theater kid.
She really is.
So is.
But when it really hits for me in a way that feels effective and completely dimensionalized is like when she's breaking down. And I love, again, like the means of like getting her on camera. It's not just a way to get her for her crying scene or anything like that. It's the fact that her deepest friendship that she's had prior to this, between the two guys, is with Josh. So when Josh finally turns the camera on her, and it's an act of aggression because he is fucking sick of being filmed and wants her to feel, like a subject instead of a person or a friend. And it's so, right down to the point where she's shrieking about how it's the only thing she has left, and then she's just pleading with him, please just stop yelling at me. Every fiber of my being was not comfortable watching that scene. I was just like, oh my gosh, like you really seriously, like guys, I love that there's always one of them among the 3, as long as there are 3 of them, there's always one who seems to kind of like keep the cooler head.
Hey guys, come on.
Exactly.
I'm really glad you brought up that scene, because to me, one of the more interesting things about the movie is essentially the turning point where in my mind, like Josh and Mike swap, because Josh seems to be he's putting up with the initial, like, oh, you're gonna kind of keep filming us a bit, and Mike gets irate with that, but also not like Mike immediately like doesn't trust her when I don't see a path. Well, no, the path is up there. Are you sure you know where you're fucking going? Like Josh is never that guy, but Mike is really short with her.
Yes.
Obviously doesn't know her as well. Is also the first one to get really upset about like we waste a whole day trying to find the car, day 3. At one point, Mike and Heather are just snarking the fuck out of each other. And Josh is the one to be like, hey guys, cool it. You're both being mean, essentially.
Yeah.
And to go from that to more days of this, and then waking up with slime all over your stuff.
Yeah.
And now you're blaming the fact that you're out there on Heather.
Yeah.
And the fact that he has a freak out. He has the meltdown. And even though Mike's been such a shit for a lot of this, as far as how he's reacting to it, I love when little moments show people's true colors. And I love in real life when people that I think maybe are kind of like braggadocious assholes show like it's little moments of tenderness when going gets rough. And I love it when Josh is freaking out that Mike's like, hey man, just give him a few minutes. Just give him 5 minutes.
Yes.
Like, we need to go. He's like, I know. I understand everything you're saying. I understand. But just give him 5 minutes. And I'm like, I love seeing Mike become that guy. Even though I don't like seeing these people out in the woods for all these days.
No, but it's about their survival instincts and their priorities, and they don't even not even necessarily clashing, but you can feel almost like a soft negotiation happening where like, yes, I see your point, I completely agree with you, however what you have to take into consideration is blah 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 blah. Again, that makes it feel so incredibly real.
I end up really rooting for Mike in the third act, so much so that like when they're in Reston Parr's house and they go up and then he realizes he's down and he runs for him. I can see the urge to help, to save, to care in his pace.
Yeah. And for all of it to just be over. Just like, let's just get him and let's just get out of here, like seeking relief on all counts. I also,
and Josh is so fucking, I mean, I get where it's coming from. But, you know, like, here's your motivation. You're lost in the woods, all that shit, and throwing her face. But then when it feels like he did it, we're done, and this moment can end, it's like, are you going to write us a happy ending? And then just like it just twists.
No.
And Lord knows, I mean, have you ever been in the moment where like, I can twist this a little more and then do it? Like when he says that, I don't just feel bad for her, or let me just say, like, I ache for her in a way because I've it's very easy to in that moment to twist the knife more than you need to. It's awful. So everything, the thing that works so good about this movie, I don't even know where to begin, but I'm going to try to get this going. So you have a lot of things in cinema where like they get it right the first time, and that's always like our basis for comparison to a certain degree. Like James Bond, like you had it with Connery, and no one's going to be as good as Connery. But if you go back and look at some of those movies, you have to understand why they work so well and when the formula strays. And this first movie, people are biting off things that became tropes, but there's so many things that work because of the execution and not just, we got there first. This is still to this day the most believable reason why the camera is still on. Yeah. And also what's motivating the performance of the camera operator. We've never had a more believable performance since then of her reasoning without ever her stopping. You understand her drive to a certain degree. And here's the thing is I don't hate her. I'm not saying I am her. I don't identify 100% with any one character.
No.
But I understand every single one character, even if it's not something I would do. And I understand just based on, you came out here to shoot a documentary and we're struggling, and like, even without witchcraft, we're just struggling out here. Like, I'm going to keep filming because the struggle could be interesting. Yeah. Even before it becomes a crutch, because later they lay it out here. Like, I understand why you like being behind this thing.
Yes. It's not quite reality.
That was an amazing line when this came out in 99. Yeah. But even before that happens, I understand the personality type that when you hear some snaps in the middle of the woods. Yeah. Like, no, fuck, let's fucking roll sound. Like, what the fuck is that? Fuck. I get it. That wouldn't be me.
No, it wouldn't be me either, but I understand completely.
It's believable.
If that's your agenda, and if that's why you're going out into the woods, then then why wouldn't I? What is the point of coming out here if something happens and I don't get it on film?
And and even before just day 3, because it was supposed to be day 1, day 2, and then we walked to our car in the morning. Yeah. And the fact that Mike's like, wow, I don't understand why I have to be fucking filming us being lost in the fucking woods. And I like her bullshit answer of like, well, because to have it, we'll look back on it and we'll laugh. And I'm like, no, because. Yeah. And the truth is, I'm glad she did. Yeah. Because for all the witch sounds, stones, and all that, not in the same way that like when you look at other horror movies and go, oh, the real horror is mad. But like the real horror in this movie is the isolation and the desperation and the conflict between these three of being lost. Yeah. And when people go, this movie's boring, it's whatever. But like, if you ate all your food and were lost in the woods for like 5 or 6 days. Yeah. and you pass the log and you spend a whole day walking and you come on the log again. That is a horror that would not sit well with me. And if I'm going to bed at night and I can't sleep, we hear kids, they're banging on our tent. We have to go outside and huddle and sleep together all night until the sun comes up.
And not even sleep, sit and just kind of huddle and just kind of wait for the sky to light up.
She is making the horror movie for me without ectoplasm on a backpack, without a bundle of sticks.
Yeah.
And all that works because all three of these actors, to me, are 1,000% performing truth, are completely believable. I never doubt for a minute that these people are real flesh and blood characters with their own internal thoughts. Mike is getting upset. I believe none of it feels like a performance. Even her, like, oh, maybe she is real, is a performance of.
It's the character performing. It's not the actress giving a poor performance. It's the character being kind of like in her, well, I'm optimistic about this. It's exactly as it should be. Maybe we will find something. Who knows? Like she's just got. So I am a pioneer. I'm going to plant my flag.
She also strikes me as the type of person who doesn't really cuss. So I think it's earlier in the hotel. She's like, I need a fucking shot, but like it felt like she's trying to talk with the big boys. And when she can't find the map, and they're like, are you fucking serious? And she's like, yeah, I'm fucking serious. Like I feel like
something broke.
Every fight, every moment of camaraderie, this whole movie, and that's one of the things that later movies have often failed to capture.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't even think it's those other movies' fault. I mean, sometimes it is over direction, maybe who you cast, the way, but these three, I'm surprised they didn't all just become stars. And I know it was hard because they used their real names in the movie, so it was very hard for them to find work afterwards because people associate Josh Leonard with Josh Leonard. I can't praise them enough. And also the fact that they're running the cameras and they're following what little guidance they're given to capture the scenes, and they manage to get those scenes without the director standing over the shoulder. It's something else when like Larry Charles is directing an episode of Curb and like we're kind of guiding the scene, but there's a director calling cut.
Yeah. And there's a crafty table right over there, and there's a makeup artist right over there. You've got your trailer like off the soundstage, or if you're on location, you've got your Winnebago, you've got your honey wagon. No, these people were abandoned at one point, like out in the woods, and left with very little food, if any, and but that was another thing, was just like because in light of everything that you're talking about in terms of like the way they relate to one another and their interactions. I mean, the interpersonal is always, a way in for me as well. Yeah. But one of the things that I really, really wanted to mention in light of like what you're talking about is also when it's just Michael and Heather, and they don't know where Josh is, and they've already kind of like had like a bad moment. I think he's just kind of like sitting, rocking, like not looking well, and she hasn't unwrapped the tongue yet, or whatever it is, the mystery, the anatomy piece. It's something organic. We know it's some part of Josh, but we just what it is up for speculation. But the fact that there's one shot that, again, I was just like, this is such a trope. But I remember the first time I saw it, it didn't feel like a trope, but it's the moment that he's sitting there just kind of rocking. She like sets the camera down, kind of like unknowingly that he's in the shot. It's like she probably just put it down and it just happens to sit kind of like at an angle, like, catching him. And she wanders into the shot, sits right next to him. And we even get like a jump cut at one point of obviously the same shot over like a long period of time. Of her with her head just like on his shoulder, and the two of them like almost like not cradling each other, but but having a physical freedom devoid of any kind of sexual tension or romance or anything like that. I don't think anybody would look at that moment and think like, oh, they're falling for each other. I feel like we all know these are two frightened, alone people who have bonded over the fact that they are experiencing this together, and that's all this is. This is just like, you are all I have right now, and I am all you have. So let's just, be together for a second. Let's just like, we're not fighting, we're not even talking, we're just kind of sitting in it together. And I really appreciated the shot, but it made me realize like how often, like even in other found footage movies that I like Cloverfield, where a private moment is being caught, candidly on camera. And sometimes I think even in Cloverfield, I think it works. But
side note, you like Cloverfield?
I do.
Yeah.
The first one.
Yeah, there was some instant backlash, but I'm not ride or die for it, but I like it.
Yeah. But with this one, that was another moment where I was just kind of like, wow, this really ended up becoming a kind of, let me just put the camera down and be with you. Like, I mean, in horrible movies like The Gallows and things like that. I mean, I know not everybody thinks it's horrible. I know there are people who are actually really there. I've seen so many people come to the defense of The Gallows, and I'm like, really?
I won't talk shit, but what a missed opportunity. That premise sounded so great, and I saw it, and I was
I kept waiting.
Underwhelmed.
No, me too. I kept waiting. It was like
they made a second
balloon.
one, and I'm like, fool me once.
But yeah. So I mean, and again, that's another thing that this movie, I feel like, attempts and achieves that maybe audiences on the night they're seeing the newest horror movie, when they're popping the popcorn and everything like that, aren't necessarily seeking substance so much as like a thrill, right. like a spookhouse, and instead they get something that I feel was I mean, and maybe it's just luck also, maybe it is like an incredibly happy accident that it is as good as it is, that the end product, like everything just kind of fell into place and made a movie that I'm really glad I revisited, that I liked then, I like now. I think 20 years from now, if I'm still around, I may want to watch it and I may get scared all over again. And also another thing I wanted to mention in terms of just like the filmmakery of it that I never really thought about before. I was watching this with AirPods in when I was streaming it, because I remember, there's a lot of screaming and it was late at night, and I got my mom with me, didn't want her to have to hear, because screaming is kind of triggering for her. So I had my AirPods in, never watched it that way before with earbuds or headphones or anything. Oh my God, the sound design is impeccable, especially for late night viewing. One thing about horror movies, watching them late at night, if you're trying not to wake somebody up, the sound editing and the mixing is not always ideal, because you will get conversational scenes that are kind of like setting the baseline, and then all of a sudden something horrible will happen and it's all over, and then you'll go right back to a conversation. And I don't know how many, even in recent years, especially like movies that are made for streaming services, that I have had to like chase the volume all night, because I don't want to disturb maybe even my neighbors, something like that. But I just I can't hear it, but now it's too loud. And now I didn't have to do that once with this movie. I sat there with it at one level, and everything that I needed to hear were like things that needed to be distant sounded distant, like right in my ear, and things that needed to be right up close sounded right up close, but didn't overwhelm me and blast my drums and everything like that. So the sound editing, respect, mad respect, because it doesn't look like the kind of movie where that would be like a chief concern. And but there's so much dimension even to be had, like especially that in a way that I never noticed when it's right there in my ear.
No, I've often found that sometimes the not so flashy, not your Avengers Endgame and Transformers movies, those are the ones that you need. The sound mix is what actually hooks you in, because you don't have other elements like that.
With extra care,
well, at least you need to nail it, because if you don't, that's just one other element that could suck. I'll never forget the first time I saw Whiplash.
Oh.
And it was so just between the intimacy of two men in a room, and then the silence, and then like close-ups of the drums, and just from one shot to the next, the audio tension. I was on the edge of my, and when my note, the second movie was over, was sound editing was superb. I know this is not the sort of thing that it's nominated for an Oscar, and then it was nominated for fucking Oscar, and I'm like, because this movie doesn't succeed without sound mixing and sound editing.
No, absolutely not. And so neither does this one that we're talking about. Because so much of it is rooted in what you're hearing. But that was another thing, was like getting to hear things even more crisply, and especially off a streaming service. Like, I'm streaming it off Redbox, and it's I'm getting all of that work like right there in my ears. Like that's the kind of audio. Maybe it's just improved in recent years, but that's usually the kind of audio quality that I seek out in a Blu-ray, you know, or something along those lines. So yeah, that was something else that just jumped out at me and made me really, really happy.
Going back to the performances a bit.
Yeah.
I just want to just give props to also the fact that, again, this is the tool of these actors. You and I, like, you've been on stage or in a class with someone who's got to improv, and it's all just like selfish beats for themselves or repeating facts, and just it's a miracle that like these people in a car, just, you know, when they pick up Mike or she's talking to Josh and he's talking about meters versus feet, and them in the hotel room, and none of it feels like self-indulgent actory bullshit.
No.
And their instincts are so good that when Heather has to film her apology, if you had to write it, that's what I would have written. And there's not a single line from her performance that I would have cut. It is efficient use of time.
Yeah.
It's superb. There's a reason why that became spoofed and all that and became like a benchmark.
Yeah.
But sometimes things are instantly that good that they become a benchmark. And
yeah. Because that's that. Superb. I mean, that it ended up becoming kind of like a joke about like a drippy nose. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean,
or just I'm so scared. Like
yes. Everybody did that. There were so many satires on this movie back in the day. My God, like the 2 or 3 years that followed this movie, it was inescapable.
Yeah.
It was one of those, and I just, but I remember. By the time it came around to me and I started seeing like the satire over and over again, it's like, I got the joke. Okay, I get it, whatever. I'm not upset about it or anything like that. But it's still such a legitimately earnest and successful moment for me, because another thing is it brings back, for me, it brings me back to also kind of Heather the narrator. Like, she'll never stop because she has that wonderful line about like, we're out here hungry, cold, and hunted. And I'm just like, you're still narrating. Like, you know, but not in a way that pulls me out, but in a way that like she's still encapsulating, like, you know, like, communicating, like all of this is her means of expression. And what she's doing at that particular moment is expressing the exact predicament that she finds herself in. So she can take a poetic license.
I mean, I like your angle on it. I always just, because it's funnier than my angle, which is just like she's embraced the idea that like, we're not going to fucking make it out of this.
Oh, that too.
So even though my skin will decompose, this videotape probably won't.
Yeah.
So at this point, like, I know I'm leaving this for someone to see.
Yeah.
So let me explain to you our plight. I never, I've already talked about how good the leads are, and we kind of touched upon this, but all the supporting interview people, people wouldn't have thought this was real if any of them ever felt like actors.
Yeah, totally.
But every single supporting player, even the ones like the one girl that she like interviews in a diner for a second.
Oh,
she's
right,
like, have you heard of the Blair Witch? Like, my friend that graduated from Blair High School. I think that's like the director's sister. And I don't even feel like I'm watching some actor trying to just make them like. It's just funny that the fact that this got believed to be real, not just because of promotions or anything, but the fact that not one fucking actor fucked it up and let it slip that it was. So
I'm sure if anybody did, they made the cutting room floor, but but
that's true. That's true too. But what we were talking about how like I'll go back to this a bit, just the idea of the horror of being lost and dealing with each other. And we were talking about like Josh and Mike, and there's a couple times where it becomes about the map, or when they lose like a whole day. We went this way, we're going south, we saw the tree, what the fuck. like the fact that Heather claims to know, like I've looked at this map and Mike's like, I thought you'd already been here and done this. Yeah. There's so much defensiveness and finger pointing, and I never caught on this before, but I wrote down like the need to be right seems to be their only comfort. And it made me think about like in life when you're bickering with someone and like you want to win the conversation. There's like, it just feels to me that it's not just frustration, but like in this moment, like the only thing that might make you feel slightly better about this is if you could just get the other person to admit that you fucked up.
Yeah.
These are like the straws that they're grasping. Like the camera's her anchor. She can still look at things, but still be tethered. But I don't know. And it's also such a male thing for Mike to be constantly doing that.
Also in when you're hungry and you're lost and you're cold and you're tired and even angry on top of it. But I mean, I always just think about like, if I just think about myself in traffic. If I'm hungry and I'm trying to just get from A to B to go get some food and just get it home, and all I want to do is and I end up like ruining like my whole morning.
Yeah,
just because I'm fucking hungry and things aren't happening at the rate that I want them to.
And you did it to yourself. Yeah,
and so I imagine like if I'm, and also the second other people get mixed into the equation and start like being able to either influence the decision making or not influence the decision making, so they get to chime in later and go like, I said that this was I've been in predicaments like that where it doesn't matter, you know, like you can say you're wrong all day and all night. It's not going to make anything like materialize. It's not going to make a town materialize or a gas station or a telephone or anything like that happen for you, and or even a troop of Cub Scouts, you know, like you can't, it's not. But in that particular moment, because you're not in your right mind, because you do need food, you do need your comforts of home, you do need to know that you're safe and that you're gonna be on time to work tomorrow, you know, you need all of these like assurances in order to kind of be okay. And when all of those are taken away from you, things that don't matter are suddenly going to seem like the biggest thing in the world. And if only, I just want you to say it. I just want to hear you say it. And it's like, oh my God. Like, yeah. But again, that's why I love, there's always, the only time there isn't really a mediator, but it's not really a fight, but I didn't like it. Where I was just kind of like, I really don't like being a part of the group right now, is when Mike and Josh almost kind of like seem to combine their powers and start singing. What was it, the Star Spangled Banner or whatever it is, America the Beautiful? Yeah. And they're just being these stupid patriots like wandering through the woods to almost like to not even to make a point, but just to kind of, it seems like a shitty brother thing to do. It gets shitty brother energy from me. It's kind of like, well, this is really going to annoy her, so let's do it.
And laughing at her when her shoes and feet are all wet.
Yeah. Oh my God. And then finally, again, these all feel like natural like courses that like arguments can take. We're just like, listen, we're all wet. We all, you know, are uncomfortable. We're all going to be uncomfortable all day. You're not the only one. So we're not laughing at you. We are in the same exact predicament. Like all of that, like just try to see things from my perspective. I feel like that is the predominant thing that people argue about, is not feeling seen or heard or recognized. And if only the other person could admit that they see things the way I see it, then maybe we'd be okay. And it's so conditional and so rooted in, I don't know, like something almost caveman logic, you know?
Yeah. Which when you take people out there and strip them of a lot of that, maybe you refer to it. Yeah. And speaking of, there's a lot, we're watching Blair Witch 2 and the third one, and we'll get to but there's a line in 2 that I can't help thinking about when I watch 1, which was when they're referring to the first movie and the fact that it's like 2 guys and a girl lost in the middle of the woods, like all those emotions, and they've got the greatest tension relief at their fingertips, and no one sleeps with each other. And I remember thinking, like, when I watched this, I'm like, day 3 or 4, like there's no shower out there.
Yeah.
You're all in a tent and you're all scared. The second you unzip your pants, do you know how gross all that funk is going to smell? Yeah, no one's fucking. That's not happening.
Also, I mean, are you really going to want to fuck either the person who got you lost, who's the reason you're still out there and that you have that funk? Or are you going to want to like you know, fuck the people who keep blaming you for being the reason that they're lost. I mean, it's not gonna happen if that doesn't erupt into some kind of like ultimate like sexual release or anything.
But it's not, you know, passion. It's just like day 4, I can't stand this. Can I just feel something else, please? But even then, I'm just saying, I don't think.
I can't even see that happening like between like an actual established couple.
Correct. But that question exists. And every time I watch this movie, I just think of that. And I go, no.
At one point it occurred to me, I was just kind of like, she seems really safe with these two guys. I mean, granted, Josh is like her.
She knows Josh, yeah.
Yeah, she knows Josh really, really well. And she doesn't know Michael all the way, but then they do have this kind of like physical, I mean, I think I called it physical freedom. It's not necessarily even freedom, but I mean, just like this tender moment between the two of them that I described earlier when they're sitting next to each other. But again, nothing. I never got any kind of tension from any of them. They all just seem to kind of be, in the beginning, it just seemed to be in a very strange way, even though Heather is largely kind of like leading the pack left and right. They did largely seem to be kind of equals, you know, like professionals. Like, no, I mean, again, like, some film sets, like sometimes it is like summer camp, and sometimes, but usually I think it's when there's more than 3 people. you know, like I'm glad they didn't go that direction once actually with this movie, but that's interesting that it got addressed in the next one.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see.
We talked about this way before, but I want to go back to it.
Okay.
Josh, without the tongue, since you think the Blair Witch is real and that Josh is just like indisposed somewhere, what do you think happens at the end of the movie when Heather runs downstairs? Because I have my own thing, but it does not conflict with it conflicts with what you think, because you think the witch is really there.
I do.
I think it's possessed Josh.
Oh, that's so sad.
I know. And
that's
all my life I've always just imagined.
Yeah, that's
Josh
really creepy. That's really
trance.
Creepy. Oh, that's so creepy. Ooh.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah,
but
I don't
do
like.
you think
I don't
it's
like
the
that
witch?
either. Yeah.
Okay.
But this is the thing. I don't even know if the witch is in the house. I think she's around. This is the thing. I don't think she has to be right there. This goes back to like the tent thing with like, because you hear the children and the laughter and then the kind of weird gurgly noises that I guess it's supposed to be a baby scream, but it sounds really weird, especially when it's in my ears. And then you hear the and I don't think the Blair Witch herself is doing that, because it seems like there's too many hands doing that. So I'm just like, okay, I think she has the ability to either make you hallucinate things that you know the way they're happening, or she has the ability to kind of like manifest other energies or life forms or something. So maybe there are like ghost children of like other children that she's killed who are doing that, but again, she's controlling like their minds and stuff like that.
They think it's playtime and they're like he
right. Or maybe it's not even them and she's still like in the driver's seat as their ghost. Like, I don't know. And I love the mystery of not really knowing. But the thing is, I do without a doubt feel like when they are running from the tent and Heather is shrieking, what the fuck is that? Oh my God, what the fuck is that? For some reason, I thought she's seeing exactly what Mary Brown saw, which is the floating woman whose feet didn't touch the floor, who is just kind of like, you know, maybe she's just or something, you know, I don't know, or maybe she's like a silhouette in the moon. Maybe she's just like she just sees like a cape flowing like with a campfire nearby. I don't know what it is. Or maybe they talked about like a weird mist like coming up from the water. So maybe she's like swirling in like a weird white mist that she can only kind of like glance at and run and freak out about. So, okay. So what I think is happening in the very end is that I always just got this image of the witch in the periphery, because they're also hearing things outside that are driving them to the house. So I just kind of felt like she's like maybe levitating outside the house and just kind of like, ooh, I'm giving myself like Salem's Lot vibes and stuff like that. Like with the thing. just her just kind of like out there almost orbiting them and just kind of tracking, because she can, I for some reason I think she can hear with her eyes, and like, so she knows like where they are in the bowels of the house. Once they get into the bowels, she can kind of control him, because this is the thing. I think she wants them, this is so fucked up, but I think she wants them to be conscious and coherent as long as she can, so she can scare them to like the highest degree. I don't know what it is, but something about like the fact that he's now, I think that's him in control. Like he ran down there, saw something that like fucked him up, and then he just like was moved into the corner. Heather's still freaking out, and she can hear that, and she likes it, so she has her like go all the way down the stairs. She knows, because that's, we already touched on it, but just like seeing a person standing in the corner, fuck that shit, fuck it up its ass in a derogatory way. So I think she knew that once she saw that, her first impulse might be to run, and she doesn't want to lose her. So at that point, she either has to sweep her up or like force her down or something like that, because there's no noise that follows after that. Also, like there is no sound of a viscera or any kind of sound of like an attack or a struggle. So maybe all she does is just maybe all she does is just kind of like, I've got her, and then just kind of like, you know, with a gesture or with a thought, just divorce Heather from her body, like her spirit or her mind or whatever, and all Heather's doing is dropping the camera and just kind of standing there.
I always just got the impression that she got like tackled.
But wouldn't there be a struggle after that? Wouldn't
like it's such a blow. It's like knocked out. Like fucking Muhammad Ali. Like boom.
Yeah. Ouch.
You hit the ground and you're just like concussed.
Wow.
That's why I always figured there's no noise. It literally like took consciousness the fuck away.
Okay.
Because we know the sound is running down there. Because I think Mike's the one still running sound, because when she comes in, you're still hearing the audio from his source.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
So the fact that, because I used to think you don't hear anything because when the camera falls over, it broke. And it wasn't until years later that I realized, no, the sound's still running down there.
Yes, it is.
You're just hearing the absence of sound, which to me is also eerie. Your reason's literally more spooky. But either way, we have our reason for like why there's no audio.
Yeah. And for but for the longest time, I don't think I mean that's because I mean now you've got me. See, this is the shit that like keeps me awake at night or keeps me from just going to sleep. Like I need a distraction now because I'm not going to be able to sleep. But because all I can think in terms of your interpretation is, we know Heather saw Mike. Did she see Josh? And I think if your interpretation were correct, I think the more interesting and the more terrifying thing is, yes, of course she did.
Yeah,
she saw him before, and who knows what he looked. Oh, see that fucked up shit. Yeah, and it's all in our imagination, and it's so fucking cool.
And you know how the film like it just cuts out. I like the creepy thing for me is she's knocked out for like a second. I don't think she stays out for that long, but she's knocked out consciousness, and I just see him turning the camera off.
I don't like you.
And then proceeds to do whatever he needs to do.
I don't like you. See, and now this happened to me last. Fuck. Sorry.
No, go on.
This happened to me last night. In addition to the looking for stuff, my brain, because I spent about 90 minutes watching this movie, finishing images in my head. Wheels start turning in my head. And last night, after the movie was over, in addition to just kind of like having a chilly, creepy feeling of like around my house again for different reasons than Michael Myers, my mind just kept kind of reaching for creepy shit. And I kept remembering things that scare the shit out of me. And even having this conversation with you about the movie, I'm remembering shit from Paranormal Activity that scares the shit out of me. I'm remembering my own supernatural experiences that I still can't, or supernatural, I mean, I can't explain what they were, but I remember the sensation that they created in me, the unease and the creepy kind of, like, let's talk about something else, you know, kind of energy that it inspires in me. And yeah, you're taking me right back there. So fuck you with your turning off the camera. I don't like it.
He very calmly just reaches down.
I know.
Well, it's I've had a similar and I'm actually more creeped out by our conversation tonight than I have been watching the movie. Yeah. And it's anytime you mention her fucking floating, because I don't think of her as real, but because of you, I imagine now a real person floating with like Harry and her floating outside the house, Salem's Lot style. Fuck you. Every once in a while, I like look behind me just to make sure that there's not like feet, you know, like about to like descend.
Yeah, no, I keep hearing noises because my windows are open, and you know we've got like flora and fauna outside my house. Like there's opossums and skunks and raccoons and stray cats and coyotes even sometimes. So yeah, I keep hearing things, and it's like fuck me.
It's interesting, like the lasting effect that a movie or just a spooky conversation can have.
Yeah,
because we were talking about this, and I'm just recalling a few days ago I saw Smile.
Yeah.
Theaters. Movie was good. Like, but the thing was after the movie. So, and you've mentioned this before. I forget what movie we saw. It was somewhat in the last like year or two. It was a newer release you saw in a theater, and I think it was Scream. Like you were scared by like.
Oh yeah.
Just the emptiness behind you.
The vacant theater behind me. Yeah.
I didn't have that in Smile because of the movie, but the lights of the steps. Since it's like it was really casting a shadow, so or it was so if I moved my arm, I would see like light hit my arm. So I became aware of like, you know, if someone was coming down the steps to go to the bathroom, I would see their shadow first, and then I'd see them, and like, you know, I was very aware of the space behind me because of that. Okay. So when the movie ended and it's just the credits and I'm in like a dark theater, that's when I started getting like the vibe. The movie, by the way, I like Smile. Smile's good.
Good.
However, the end of the credits are going, the little Paramount logo comes up, I stand up, I turn around to pick up my trash, and there's two guys seated about 5 rows behind me. And they did that thing, and I love theaters that do this. No one does it anymore. Like Century, they program the second the credits start, they program it so that the house lights come up. Yeah. This was credits in the dark, like it's fucking supposed to be.
Yeah.
So I get up and turn around, and I just see these two silhouettes.
Oh shit.
And there are two dudes in like black hoodies. So all I see is just these black lumps. And I stand and look at them for like a second, and I expect them to get up, and they don't.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, okay, why aren't you getting, I'm going to go down these next steps and get the fuck out of here. And when I get to the bottom of the steps, as I turn to leave the theater, I turn and look again. And now there's nothing playing, and they're still just in the seats.
No. Oh my God, just Home Alone.
Yeah. And they didn't do this, which was this would have made me feel better. Like, oh, you're having a conversation and you don't want the conversation to end.
They were just sitting there.
They were just sitting there, and I'm like, I'm gonna get the fuck out of here now.
Fuck that shit. Oh my God, what kind of cult bullshit was going on? Okay, go on.
So you go around the corner, and then there's the long hallway to the door. I go around the corner, and immediately I'm like, I'm gonna run.
Yes.
Hi, I'm about to be 42 years old, but I'm still running down a theater. And then I get out to the safety of the lobby, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stand here, and I'm going to wait and make sure someone comes out. Because what if, like, if I stand here and 5 minutes go by and no one comes out, were those fucking ghosts? I don't know.
Oh my God. I don't like that shit.
So I pull out my phone just to pretend to be on it. So I'm like, I'm standing in the lobby, but I'm doing something. I'm responding. The guys, but I'm really waiting. And I'm like, if someone comes out in the next minute, great. It'll have been worth it. But if no one comes out,
oh my God.
And sure, about a minute, two dudes in black hoodies come out. I'm like, thank God I can fucking leave. Those are real people. And
they're just fucking psychos. That's all.
They're just fucking psychos.
Jesus Christ. That is insane.
That was scarier than anything I had watching that movie.
Well, because that's a legitimate like fear. Like, I mean, you know,
all they had to do was get up or like shift or something.
Yeah. No.
Two still bodies.
Not cool.
Didn't fucking like it.
I don't like that. That's not good body language. And also they should have actually done something just to kind of like let you off the hook. Like, you know, just to kind of give you some reassurance. Oh, we're not trying anything. We're not trying to intimidate you or scare you. We're not imposing. Like
I wasn't looking at them like
no. But still,
I needed a Ferris Bueller and be like, go home. What are you doing here? You're still here? Go.
But no,
okay,
yeah, sorry,
no, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Okay, no, just because in on the heels of what you were just talking about in terms of like carrying stuff, like I made a complaint to my friend Bonnie earlier today. I was talking to Bonnie, and Bonnie. And I told her, because the heat has still been kind of present. I haven't really been feeling the autumnalness that I would otherwise. Also, like just like my work schedule, and even though I am watching like horror movies and stuff like that, like for the other pod and stuff, it's like it's still it's something that I've been doing year round, so that hasn't changed. I feel like I'm waiting. I told her I feel like I'm waiting for like the change, for like the switch to flip, and so I can kind of like get excited about it being autumn, like everybody on Instagram is excited about it. Everybody's posting their spooky shit. Also, I'm not seeing any of like the new releases right now. I'm not going out to the movies and doing that, so I'm like, okay, something needs to kick into gear, because obviously it's not kicking into gear for me, so I have to do something. And interestingly enough, I feel like this conversation has given me be careful what you wish for, because now I'm like, fuck, I gotta watch something else before I go to sleep, but it can't be too like cheery and happy, because then it takes on like almost like an ironic feel, and I feel like I am the person in the movie who's like watching the thing that's telling you everything's fine, everything's okay, but it's not. And so fuck me. I don't
too much irony can be a bad thing.
Not good. But I'm happy. I am grateful because it's a shift. At least it's a shift.
The fall, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned, because right now, like this week alone, I went to the theaters. I saw Terrifier 2. I saw Smile. I just tonight watched Hellraiser on Hulu. The Midnight Club just dropped. I watched Werewolf by Night yesterday. We got Queer for Fear, the final stretch of The Walking Dead. The Chucky premiere was just like this month. I know your schedule. There was so much media for Halloween this month. I saw like there's the Munsters. Like there's and also just side note from Blair Witch for a minute, but like this year, I started feeling this about a month ago. But like, can I just list off for you, because I wrote them down. This year alone: Scream, Fresh, X, Pearl, Bodies, Terrifier 2, Smile, Hellraiser, Watcher, Barbarian, Black Phone, Studio 666, Men, Orphan First Kill. I can't believe it was this year, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the reboot, was earlier this year. Them. We haven't even got to Halloween Kills yet. Like
ends.
Halloween Ends.
Yeah.
Like this is we're gonna look back at what a benchmark year 2022 was for like not just the sheer volume of horror movies, but we're gonna look back and go, holy shit, Barbarian, X, Pearl, Fresh, Scream. What variety. A great fucking year.
Yeah.
Great fucking year we're in. I've been loving.
The ones I've been watching, I have. I mean, even the ones that I'm not like gaga over, it's not like this is absolute trash. I'm sorry I ever wasted time. It's like, no, I probably, if I knew somebody or met somebody or dated somebody who like had never seen one of the movies, any one of the movies that you named, and they wanted to watch it with somebody who loves horror like me, I would watch any one of them. I'd be like, yeah, sure. I might, depending on what it is. If it were Black Phone, I'd probably be like, you sure?
Yeah.
Or the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I'd be like, have you seen all of them? You sure you don't want to do a franchise? Run.
I'm trying to think if there's any that I wouldn't. Because I mean, I'd watch Orphan First Kill again.
I haven't even seen it. My sister saw it. She was like, even Terrifier 2. Yeah.
It's got amazing gore. Cool. It's a very it's Halloween set. So like it's a great Halloween-y movie. Like I'm not big on Terrifier, but I'd watch Terrifier 2 again.
Well, maybe. Well, you're not big on it, so we probably won't do a pod on it. But that's what case. That's kind of like a is it they? Wes Craven's They? Is that the one I'm thinking of? Yeah, which had nothing to do with Wes Craven for some reason. But anyway,
yeah.
But They, I remember like that was a movie where I was like, okay, a lot of things could have been done better, but ultimately, you've got a monster that scares me, and that's how I kind of feel about Terrifier 1. Is like, you know, I have varying opinions about the course of the movie, but the monster, legitimately, like the guys in the hoods like behind you, if I see Art the Clown somewhere, somebody dressed as Art the Clown, no thank you, no, I'm not about it, no, a world of no. That's my, like Jordan Peele made Nope, I'm making a world of no. That's my movie.
I'm glad that I mean, not I'm saying I'm glad for you, but I'm glad that worked. Because Art the Clown does nothing for me. I'm not going to be shitty about it, but just like I'm not scared, and I don't think he's that funny.
I don't
like. No, because to me, there's really Eddie. No, there's two ways to me of viewing Art the Clown. Okay. One is, where's that creepy clown? And he's like, I'm smiling, I'm silly. And then there's the Freddy Krueger-esque way of like cheering him on. We're laughing at his shtick, right? Which is
no.
Well, and especially, but I will say, like, I like his shtick in Terrifier 2 quite a bit. But you know, like if someone's scared and then he's like, like, you know, that can be funny if you were the right kind of viewer. Yeah.
No, I'm not the right kind of viewer at all. You're not. I am the wrong kind of viewer.
Yes. You fall into the he's scary trap, but I feel
I
like
do. I totally do.
Terrifier 2, totally worth checking out, folks. Anyway, okay. As we get to the end of this, I want to go back to the ending because I have like another. So I'm telling you what I always thought I got out of Josh.
Yeah.
Being possessed.
Oh no.
But we also have to consider another factor that and I want to see how you feel about it, because even though I have my knee-jerk response that I saw in theaters and that I've always carried with me, there's also the greater lore to be taken into consideration, which is in Curse of the Blair Witch, they established that after Rustin Parr was busted in the 40s for kidnapping the kids, people burned the house down.
Oh,
so people have always wondered, how the fuck are they running around in a house in 1994 that technically isn't there anymore?
Mm-hmm.
For the longest time, I always thought, ghost house. I don't know. She's a witch. Who the fuck knows? Yeah. She's summoning the magic of these kids to beat on the tent.
Yeah.
Why isn't? But I forget when I kind of stumbled upon this idea, but I don't know, maybe like 10, 15 years ago. Shit. But it hit me about how, like, and this has been kind of a fan theory that is supported by 2, and then Jesus fuck, do they run with it in 3? That time is wonky in the woods. And hypothetically, the reason why they're in that house is because they're also in the 1940s.
I don't like that. That's not scary to me. That's not scary.
Okay, here's where it might be, and here's the thing that I can't, that gives some validity to it.
Okay.
If it's just generic goings-ons in the woods, why is Mike in the corner? That's not the witch's MO. That's Rustin Parr's MO. Mm-hmm. One could argue, well, you're in Rustin Parr's house, so there's like, you know, like a energy, something's. Here's the thing that fucks me up. If they're actually in the 1940s, Mike's in the corner because Rustin Parr put him in the corner.
Right.
And the one who's attacking them at the end is Rustin Parr.
Mm.
And that's why it's Mike in the corner. Because why would anyone else? Why is he in the corner? That's only Rustin Parr's modus operandi.
But only because the Blair Witch told him to.
No. The witch told him to kill people. He put kids in the corner because he didn't like their eyes watching
on him.
He would bring them.
Okay.
And when you get to Blair Witch 2, which takes place, I think a year later,
Yeah.
the Rustin Parr house is in ruins.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering what you think, chew on that.
I feel like it's scarier if, and probably more in alignment. I can't speak to the other movies because I saw the third one once, and
yeah, me too.
Yeah, and the second one I've only ever seen slivers of, so I have no frame of reference. Yeah, I've never sat down and watched it from beginning to end, and anytime it'd be like on television, I'd just be like, ugh, because it'd always be like a half hour in or an hour in or something, and I'd be like, well, I'm not going to start this from the beginning. I'm definitely not going to like.
I cannot wait until the next one.
I know.
Cannot fucking wait.
But yeah, we'll see what I think about that, because I'm curious to know what I think about it. But anyway. But in terms of just like keeping it in alignment with how I perceive things, like, because there's another thing, messing with, there's something scarier to me about somebody messing with my perception of things rather than
actual time.
Rather than actually like altering the reality and putting me in traveling me in time and like putting me in another like, decade or something, and having someone from the past come. I mean, that's confusing. I think there's another franchise that does that in its fifth movie that does it really, really well. Actually, I can think of two.
You were citing Paranormal, right?
Yeah. But
what's the other one?
Well, it's not time travel, but it's the spoilers, folks. But it's the reveal in the fifth movie of Final Destination.
Oh, yeah.
It's not time travel, but you
right.
just kind of realize, oh, I thought we were here.
It turns out, yeah.
But with this one,
also Saw.
Oh, right.
Yeah. You see Saw 4, and you're like, wait, Saw 4 is really just side quest of Saw 3? Wow.
Yeah, but I don't like Saw 4 as much as you do.
Yeah.
But no, with this one, I think it's scarier, just like imagining, like speculating that they could, the same thing that might have them just fucking running in circles in the woods when they're perceiving that they're running up flights of stairs and down flights of stairs in a house feels really connected to, for me, what I always perceived. They were following the compass, and she'd say like we walked south like all day, like I know for a fact we walked south all day, and as far as she was concerned, they were. But whatever, I always just thought like, how fucked up would it be if the Blair Witch literally not even had them necessarily walk in a circle, but what if they walked in several circles like all day, and she only wanted to kind of like reveal the fact that they were at the same log at the end of the day, so they have no choice but to set up camp, or even worse. And this really fucks me up, because perspective. What if they're really not at the log? Like what if they're still lost in the woods, but she just wants, so she can just kind of, because if she can control like the way they perceive things, she can make them believe they're anywhere. And they could even be like 20 feet from their car, like 20 feet from the side of the road.
I've never thought about that in 23 years. But you're talking about some like fucking like the Power Stone or whatever from
some mind fuckery.
The reality stone, yeah.
And that's, but I mean, I think that's probably the scariest thing to me, if the house is not there, because I had forgotten that about that from Curse of the Blair Witch and everything like that. So if it hadn't, but also like,
if you don't know that, it's still an effective scene.
Yeah,
but it's some fun shit to chew on. But I agree with you. It's creepy.
All that,
if it is 1994,
all the handprints on the.
But that's one of the other things is, if you hadn't seen Curse of the Blair Witch and the house has just been there for 50 some odd years.
Yeah.
Why are the handprints still so visible? Why has no one cleaned it up? Like, it's all just eerie.
Well, because the people of Burkittsville are largely like, I don't go up there.
Yeah.
So there's that, number one, but also number two, I always felt like, I mean, the little hands were able to beat the sides of the tent. Like,
that's true.
How do we know the hands aren't just kind of? I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. It's where the mystery makes it even creepier for me. It's like it's creepier not knowing. Like, why
I will say, I don't want to say time travel, but like, yeah, it's not really scary, but it is something I think really worth chewing on, especially because it's Mike in the corner and the house is still standing. But you're right, it isn't as scary, but it is something kind of nerdy to think about.
I mean, again, like I generally, even movies I've lived with for years, like this one, even though I haven't seen it in quite a few, like the logic part of my brain will only kind of click in, I think, when things don't work for me. I've actually been, I think we've had conversations in the past, like even off pod, where we'll talk about something and something won't make sense to you, and I'll be like, really? Because it made sense to me because blah 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 blah. Then you'll explain to me why it doesn't make sense to you. I'll be like, oh, I never really thought of it that way. You know, like I guess logically it doesn't make any sense, but I always just attributed it to A to B and C, and I never thought beyond that. I mean, I am largely as much as I enjoy a slow burn, I enjoy art house and I enjoy subjectivity and taking what I can perceive and everything like that. Reasoning things out is not necessarily like, you know, a big thing that I come to a movie for or with, you know, like I don't flex that muscle nearly as often as just kind of riding the wave and going, you know, like absorbing it. That's probably more often my default than kind of reasoning it out, unless because usually if I'm doing that, I'm probably not having a very good time. I'm probably probably going, wait, okay, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, and the other thing that I don't want to say lends it credence, is that the right word? Anyway, you know, they don't go into the movie, but again, the lore and covered in the Curse of the Blair Witch is that the films and the tapes were found not just at the site of Rustin Parr's house, but like buried in like part of the stonework. And they talk about how like essentially like it was excavated, and they're like, how like to get to them you would have to break through the rock work, disturb the dirt, and then put them in there. But the fact that like the dirt wasn't disturbed, like all these layers were not disturbed, they're like, it's like they just appeared down there and we don't understand how they're down there. Again, way back in like 99, 2000, my impression was like, yeah, that's the magic of the witch, is that this happened in 99 and then she buried them in the underneath, you know, magically.
Or in 94, isn't this supposed to take place in 94?
Yeah. So, but she used her witch magic to bury them. And then I started to think, okay, but if they're in the 40s, the house is still standing. If it's Rustin Parr, someone's taken that camera and they bury it, and that's why the earth doesn't feel disturbed, is because they were buried in the fucking 40s and they're just being recovered now. But I have to wonder, does videotape last over 50 years?
Yeah, I mean, I know I don't think it's biodegradable, but
the fact that the earth isn't settled and disturbed in 94 does make you think maybe they really are in the 1940s then at the end of that movie. Just something to think about.
Or
that's what I'm saying. That's what I always thought.
I mean, she's called a witch. I mean, maybe she goes by other things. Like she probably never knew she was called the Blair Witch. But
correct.
Yeah. So, but I don't know, and I don't want to say, well, if they were calling her a witch, there was probably something up. She probably had some kind of magic going on. But that's what we're always raised with these witch stories, whether they're happening in Salem or whether they're happening in Blair, like Burkittsville, whatever they are, like there's always this weird angle that I can't ever quite get over. I mean, I can shake it enough to enjoy the movie, but it always comes back to like, we're still calling like women with powers who use them for nefarious purposes like witches. And it's like and we're still demonizing them with these movies, you know, and they are witches, you know.
Well, and I have to wonder, because they don't go into it in the first movie, but when you watch The Curse of Blair Witch, to me, she's always, I'm never going to say I full-blown sympathize with her, but there is a tragedy to her. Okay. And that these kids accused her of taking them out and like pricking them, and that the town goes, that's witchcraft. And then we deem you a witch. And then her punishment was banishment. But not just like, oh, you can't come into the town. The banishment was they wheel her out into the woods, they tie her to a tree in the winter, and then they go the fuck away. And they leave her tied to a tree.
Ooh, that's intense.
That is sad.
That is an understatement.
Yes. And then 1 year later.
Way to take a stand.
1 year later. In my opinion, this is
hot take. Hot take.
Not very nice. It's not very nice at all. She's not a nice woman. Not nice.
Oh God, please. Oh, let's just go down that road.
Oh yeah. No. So then 1 year later, exactly 1 year later, the following winter, the kids who accused her like disappeared, and then more children disappeared.
My thought is good,
because all she mentions is that the town of Blair was founded here, and then it became Burkittsville later. No, but they all fucking fled because all their children were disappearing. They're like, well, holy shit, let's get the fuck out of here. So I've always thought like in her, like she was fueled by like rage and but at this, and she carries these kind of raw emotions in her. So even I'm not justifying her hauntings, but I've always felt that she's not just like it's born of tragedy.
I want to watch Paranorman now.
I have a certain level of sympathy for her witch-like existence, and it also makes me wonder: was she a witch? And then they tied her to a tree. Well, witch for whatever cinematic, our terms for that are. Or what if she fucking wasn't? But by tying her out there in the middle of the woods, some magic shit happened to her, and you fucking created the Blair Witch yourselves, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Something to chew on.
All right. Well, we'll see how I feel about all of that when I actually watch the movie.
Yeah. Oh, what? Curse of the Blair Witch?
No, I mean, I got to watch that, but also just like when I see like, if I see Book of Shadows and shit, like how because that's another thing is I don't remember how I obviously I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know how she figures into Book of Shadows, but even the third movie, I'm just like, how much, and I'm not asking for you to answer, but like how much Blair Witch do we actually get in that movie? Because I don't remember a lot.
Oh, the third one?
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. But we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good to hear you talk about your. I love hearing anyone's experience about seeing this because I have my own too informed experience.
Yeah.
But what a fun. Also, I love, like you said, like people like you get to the ending and they're like, oh, what the fuck.
Yeah.
I had that once where someone was like, what the fuck? But every other time I saw it, when that camera gets knocked over, people are just like, oh, and then it just ends and people were just like, what the fuck was that? Like who? People even like, what the fuck just happened? Are they, what the, and I loved hearing those kind of reactions. Same thing with when they wake up in the morning with the rocks. Audible gasps from people like, oh, we saw rocks before, we know what they mean. Also audible gasps when they stumble upon all the stick men. Which, Eddie, so many stick men.
A lot of victims.
No, but like.
What?
No, like. You come into the middle of the woods and you see like 1 to 5 hanging in there and be like, oh, that's fucked up. There's so many. Who's doing like that's not like yeah, no normal human would ever stack books like this. Like who the fuck hangs this many stickmen in the middle of the woods? I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Oh no, I don't like it either. Oh, but that would
the audience like really like
yeah. It also makes me think though, you were mentioning like the making of the stickmen, like, and that's what the cracking is and everything like that. But another thing, again, like I love the subjectivity of this movie because at one point the people, the kids, in the tent, Michael, Josh, and Heather are talking about it, and they're all going on about like, it sounded like footsteps, like somebody was coming closer, and I'm just like, so, but like giant footsteps, because it sounded like trees are being like thin trees, but thin trees are being kind of mowed through, and that's what the crackling is and everything like that. Like it sounds like lumber, like thin lumber, but lumber and stuff like that. So I'm just like, but if it sounds, but then I think like, okay, so, but does it sound like footsteps because it sounds like they're drawing closer, because it keeps happening repetitively like footsteps do, and they keep getting closer the way footsteps do when somebody steps towards you. So you get this sense of something immense and large, almost like a giant is like coming towards you, but it's not a giant in the sense of like a corporeal giant. It's just a force of of her power, and also a means of like intimidating you, letting you know this is the size of what's gonna happen to you.
This is her metaphorically being like, this is my dick.
Exactly. Just like, I'm a big old dick, Kim sweeping left and right.
Yeah.
Left and right. Yeah, that's what the Blair Witch is doing. Here's my big horse dick. Mowing down trees.
Well, I like watching you crack yourself up.
I'm sorry.
Well, actually, the way you were describing earlier, though, made me think of the Evil Dead, like traveling through the woods.
Oh, right. Yeah.
This is the first, I just got a new image in my head and I don't really like it. But, you know, I was saying that the sound you're hearing is her making the stickmen. Yeah. But you were saying it's so like it's multiple. I just had this image of like her arms up and like using her magic, and then the trees are breaking and like she's like, it's not even her hands doing it. It's just her sort of casting.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah.
All the branches are snapping themselves.
Well, again, I'm seeing her float, and I'm seeing her, just kind of, and then the trees just break. And then, so she's got a clearing. So the next footstep doesn't need to happen until she draws closer to the next thing. And then it's just like, and everything. God, I don't like it.
Yeah, I need to go watch Basketball or Animaniacs or something after this. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just going to probably just be on YouTube for another 2 hours or something. It's after midnight now. So I'm just.
The witching hour.
Is it? Sometimes I hear midnight to 1 is the witching hour. And then other people say it's 3 to 4. What? Which is the witching hour? Comment underneath it if you're still watching.
Whoever made it all the way through. You know.
Yeah, right.
We'll know because someone will comment. I don't know, 3 a.m. Like, holy shit! Someone watched the whole video.
Right, that'd be awesome.
Well, I thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
And I personally like when we watch something that you haven't seen before, because I love getting your hot take. So I'm really looking forward to the next one. Holy shit. Ho, ho, ho. Till next time. Bye, everybody.